What is going on, everyone? I hope you are all having a fantastic day. So, I'm scrolling through Facebook the other day and I stumbled upon an article from CNBC that talks about how much money millennials should have saved for retirement at each age. And months ago, I had seen a video on a similar topic by the man, the myth, the legend, Andre Jick. And one of the things that I found really interesting about these articles and videos on this topic is that a lot of the research is very conflicting and the data is very inconsistent. And honestly, that makes a lot of sense because this is going to drastically depend on your lifestyle, your income, so there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer to how much money you should have saved at your current age. So today I want to take a bit of a different approach and look at what steps you can start taking and implementing in your life immediately based on your age that can help you reach your financial goals as soon as possible. I'm going to walk you through each age bracket, give you some pointers on what financial milestones you want to strive for by each age, and then take a look at some of that income and net worth data that I talked about earlier, and actually give you some reasons why you should really ignore that as much as possible, as weird as that might sound. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who you think could get value out of this content as well, and let's jump right into it. Alright, so first off, while I am going to be talking about those median incomes and net worths from the videos and articles that I used to make this video that I talked about earlier, I do want to mention that you should not use these numbers as a comparison to yourself. Because trust me, comparison is the thief of joy. And whether you are far beyond these averages for your age, or if you are not even close to them, it doesn't matter. Because the steps that we're going to talk about today will help you excel far beyond where you are, or catch up to whatever these averages are. So let's start off with the nice young age of 20 years old. Now, there's a lot of conflicting data out there on this, but in my research, I have found that the average 20-year-old here in the United States has a net worth between negative $25,000 and zero. Now, when we're talking about net worth, keep in mind that this is all of your assets, so everything that you own, including your cash, your investments, your bank accounts, and any physical assets like a car, minus any liabilities, which is anything like your debts. And when you subtract that from your assets, you get your net worth. So this is pretty common sense, but the reason that the average 20-year-old has a negative net worth is largely because the mortal enemy of millennials, student loan debt. Let's face it, 44 million Americans have some amount of student loan debt, and while that is a whole separate conversation and video in itself, for the sake of this video, if you're 20 years old and you're watching this and you do not have student loan debt, then you are currently coming out way ahead of the average 20-year-old. And if you're a teenager looking to go to college, then check out this video here on how to go to college for free, because trust me, student loan debt will hold you back in so many ways in your future that you cannot even comprehend at the moment. Now, don't worry, if you're 20 years old or around that age and you do currently have student loan debt, then that is completely okay, and it's not abnormal at all. But the purpose of this video is to show you that being normal financially is actually a really bad thing, or as Dave Ramsey would put it,
normal is not excellent.
That's right.
Normal sucks.
Now, I will address the student loan issue in the next age bracket, but long story short, do everything in your power to avoid student loan debt at all costs. And if you do currently have student debt, then do everything you can to pay it off as quickly as possible. Now, outside of that, at age 20, you definitely want to open a Roth IRA. Whether you are able to contribute to that right now or not, it doesn't matter. Just go open one of these accounts. And you also want to open a credit card, in my opinion, just to start building up your credit score. And honestly, if you just get a simple credit card like the Discover It card that I've talked about in many of my past videos, then you can use this to make your regular everyday purchases and pay it off at the end of every single month, and you really can get a credit score in the high 700s in a short period of time. This should go without saying, but please do not carry a balance on your credit card under any circumstance, and if you know that you are going to carry a balance on that card, then do yourself a favor and don't bother getting it in the first place. Alright, so moving on to when you are in your 30s. Now, the average net worth of a 30-year-old here in the US is $76,000, which might sound really high, and it is, because this is an average, and if you've ever taken a basic statistics course, then you know that the average can be easily skewed by outliers, such as rich 30-year-olds like Graham Stephan. But the median gives us a much more realistic look of what you should be aiming for at the age of 30, and the median net worth of a 30-year-old here in the US is right around $11,000. Again, whether you are well beyond that or nowhere near it, some big steps you can take in your 30s is fully funding a Roth IRA that we talked about in the last step, maybe having an employee-sponsored retirement account like a 401k, and having a credit score of at least 700 or better. Now, two of those things being the Roth IRA and the good credit score take a lot of time to build up, and that is why it is so important to start young and start immediately, and that's why I mentioned these two things in the 20-year-old age bracket. A Roth IRA has a maximum contribution limit of $6,000 per year currently, so if you don't start contributing to that until you're in your 40s, then you aren't going to be able to reap the benefits of compound interest until your 70s or 80s, and that is definitely not what we want for you. Because remember, we are trying to reach these financial goals as quickly quickly as possible. Now, that brings us to another good tip for 30-year-olds, and that is you want to aim for a savings rate of 50%, meaning you're saving or investing 50% of your income. Now, I know this might sound absolutely ridiculous and unrealistic, but if you're saying to yourself right now that there is no way you would be able to save 50% of your income, then perhaps you need to take a closer look at your lifestyle, because more often than not, it is not the income that is the problem, it is what you're doing with that income. But a 50% savings rate is a great number to shoot for, and remember, the higher your savings rate, the faster you're able to retire, because retirement is not an age, it is just a point where your passive income is enough to support your lifestyle. And trust me, you do not need to wait till 65 to reach that point. So for my friends in your 30s, Roth IRA, credit score above 700, and a savings rate of at least 50%. Now, moving on to our 40-year-old age bracket, and this is where things start to get really interesting, because that compound interest and the interest that you're earning on your investments will actually start to overtake your regular income in your late 40s, as long as you started investing in your early 20s. By 40 years old, most experts, whatever an expert is, recommend that you have at least 3 times your annual income saved, and at the age of 40, you're probably pretty far into your career and making a good amount of money. So let's say you're making $80,000 per year, then by this rule, you would want to have at least $240,000 saved. But again, these numbers are just a median, and comparing yourself is not only bad for your mental health, but can be extremely demotivating if you're not even close to these numbers. So instead of focusing on that, focus on the things that are actually in your control, which at this point should be maxing out your retirement accounts, whether that be an IRA, a 401k, or both, and more importantly, paying off all of your bad debts. Now, this is a topic of great controversy and debate, but in my opinion, your bad debt is anything above a 4% interest rate, just because the amount that you're going to be paying to the lender for that loan is going to be significantly more than what you could realistically earn if you had invested that money, if you are factoring in inflation. So this likely means anything like a student loan, card debt, credit card debt, and any other major debt. Get rid of it by 40 or earlier. Probably earlier if you can. And that brings us to the wonderful age of 50 years old. And if you followed all of these previous steps and you started when you were in your early 20s, then at 50, you should really be looking at the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know about you, but at 50 years old, I don't want to be looking at another 15 years of work. And if you really worked hard over the past several decades and really increased your savings rate and put that money aside over that long period of time and invested it wisely, then at 50, you definitely can be retired and even retire significantly before that, like what many members of the Financial Independence Retire Early or FIRE community have done. At the age of 50, I would aim to have 5 to 7 times your annual expenses saved up. And if you're looking to retire at this age, then that is definitely not going to be enough. But the good thing is that at this point, your investments and the compound interest that you're earning on those investments should really start to take off, and you'll be able to earn enough money to really support your lifestyle as long as you maintain the same lifestyle. And therefore, you can really just do whatever makes you happy and stop working. Now, I could continue this well into the 60s and even beyond that, but if you followed all of the earlier steps in this video, then I really don't think you should be working that long into your life. Unless, of course, it is something that you truly love and you're passionate about, then that is a completely different conversation. But as far as working for the sake of income, hopefully by the age of 50 or 60, you really ought to be done. And I know that a lot of these steps at the various age brackets heavily relied on investing, which I know is a really broad term that is really daunting for a lot of people. So if you have no idea where to get started with investing, then there are 2 main things that I would say to you. First of all, start by investing in things that you know will give you a guaranteed return. And you might be saying to yourself right now, or yelling at the screen,
that there is nothing that will give you a guaranteed return.
And actually, that's not true. If you're looking to invest in something, but you currently still have debts, then paying off those debts first is actually going to give you a guaranteed return on your money. If you have a car loan, for example, at a 4% interest rate, then by paying off that loan, you actually are getting an immediate 4% return on that money, because otherwise you'd be giving that 4% to the bank. So by paying it off immediately, you're actually saving yourself 4% and technically getting a guaranteed return. So even if you have absolutely no idea where to get started, then paying off those debts first and earning that guaranteed return is definitely a great place to get started. And my second tip to you is to reach out to a financial professional who can walk you through the process, because one, investing is not as complicated as it might be, but also there is no shame in having a professional in your corner who can walk you through your investing journey and also talk you off the cliff when the market drops 40% and you want to sell everything. Don't do that. Just don't do that. If you follow the steps that we talked about today, stay consistent, and find a happy and healthy lifestyle that works for you, then you are going to be just fine. And honestly, at the end of the day, if you are happy with your lifestyle, then who really cares about the average net worth? So with that being said, let me know what financial goals you have set for yourself, and if you did enjoy this video, make sure to share it with someone who you think could get value out of it as well. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so that you can see the great content that I have planned in the future. As always, thank you so much for your time. I seriously do appreciate it so much. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.